All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about software architecture today. Now, I know that can sound a little dry, but it's basically the blueprint for our entire digital world. And for years, a huge debate has been raging between two big ideas, monoliths and microservices. Today, we're going to make sense of it all.
And to kick things off, let's start with some real talk from a developer in the trenches. This quote from Reddit just hits the nail on the head, right? It perfectly captures the core fear that in our quest to break things apart with microservices, we're just making life way harder, trading something simple and fast for something complex, slow, and unreliable. It's a pretty stark warning. But despite that very real concern, check this out. A Gartner survey found that nearly 3/4, 74%, of organizations are already using a microservices architecture. That is a huge number. So you have this fascinating paradox. If they can be such a headache, why is almost everyone jumping on the bandwagon? Which brings us to the big question for this entire explainer. Was it worth it? Did this massive shift in how we build software actually deliver on its promises, or did it just trade one set of problems for another? To find out, we've got to go back to the beginning. So first up, the monolith. Because to really understand why a revolution like microservices even happened, you first have to understand what was so broken about the old way of doing things. A monolith is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's one giant unified piece of code. Everything, the user interface, all the business rules, how it talks to the database, it's all bundled together. It's built as one thing, deployed as one thing, and scaled as one thing. And for a long time, this approach worked just fine. Monoliths are actually really simple to get started with. If you're a small team or a startup trying to get a new product out the door, they're fantastic. They're fast and efficient. But as that application grows, the cracks start to show. The code base becomes this tangled mess. A single bug can bring the whole system down. And if you need to scale up just one little feature, guess what? You have to make a copy of the entire application. It gets messy fast. This comment about Amazon's early days is legendary, and it perfectly captures that breaking point. Just try to imagine your application is so massive, so unwieldy, that just pushing out a simple update takes half a day. They literally did the math and realized their daily deployment process would soon take longer than 24 hours. That's not just an inconvenience. That's a full-blown crisis that stops you from innovating. Something had to change. And that change was the microservice promise. It was this radical new idea. Instead of building one giant, unmovable block, what if we built a collection of small, independent pieces that all work together? So in a microservices world, you break your application down into these small, focused services. You might have one service that just handles user logins, another that manages the product catalog, and a third one that processes payments. Each one is totally self-contained, runs on its own, and they all talk to each other over the network using well-defined APIs.
And the promised benefits were, frankly, huge. All of a sudden, you could update the payment service without touching anything else. If your product catalog was getting hammered with traffic, you could just scale that one service instead of the whole app. Small teams could work independently without stepping on each other's toes. And hey, if one little service went down, it wouldn't necessarily take the entire ship down with it. It was a promise of being faster, more scalable, and way more resilient.
And for a lot of companies, this wasn't just hype. The data from Gartner shows that adopters saw real, measurable improvements. Over 60% said their deployment speed got better, more than half saw their agility increase, and another half boosted their scalability. It looked like the promise was actually delivering. But as you probably guessed, there's no such thing as a silver bullet in technology. The move to microservices came with its own, often pretty painful, dose of reality. This developer warns about a really common trap, what's known as the distributed monolith. It's when you think you've created microservices, but really you've just taken your monolith, broken it into pieces that are still totally dependent on each other, and scattered them across the network. It's the worst of both worlds. You get all the complexity of a distributed system with none of the actual benefits. A disaster in the making, for sure. And hey, remember that very first quote we saw about slow network calls? Well, here's the data to back it up. Performance tests often show that microservice setups can have 2 to 3 times higher server response times. And it makes sense, right? What used to be a super fast internal function call inside one machine is now a much slower trip across a network to another service. On top of that, you're running all these separate processes, so your total memory usage goes way, way up. So this is the really crucial part to understand. Microservices are not free. They introduce a whole new universe of complexity. All of a sudden, you're trying to manage hundreds of services, you're dealing with network lag, and you're trying to solve these mind-bending puzzles about how to keep data consistent everywhere. It demands a massive investment in things like advanced monitoring and DevOps automation, a huge operational overhead that, frankly, many teams just weren't ready for. Which brings us to the most important part of this whole discussion. The debate isn't really about which architecture is better, it's about which architecture is the right choice for a very specific situation. So let's just break it down nice and simple. Monoliths, they are perfect for startups, new products, and small teams. They let you build something fast and see if people even want it. Microservices, on the other hand, are really built for large, complex applications with lots of different teams, where you absolutely need to scale different parts of the system independently, and you're pushing out updates all the time.
And you know what? It's not just a black or white choice. A really popular middle ground has popped up called the modular monolith. Think of it like this. It's built and deployed as one single unit, but inside that unit, it's designed with really clean, well-defined boundaries between different modules. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, the operational simplicity of a monolith with the organizational clarity of microservices.
And for those teams that really do need to make the leap, it's not like you just flip a switch overnight. There are proven ways to do this. It all starts with really understanding your existing system. You can't break apart what you don't understand. Then you pick a small, low-risk piece to start with. A super popular technique for this is called the strangler fig pattern. It's a great name, right? Imagine a vine growing over an old tree. You gradually build new microservices that take over old functionality, slowly and safely strangling the old monolith until it's no longer needed. And of course, none of this works without great automation and monitoring, so you can actually see what's going on.
Okay, now don't try to read every single box on this flowchart, your eyes will cross. What's important here is the idea behind it. This just shows that choosing an architecture isn't about following the latest trend. It's a strategic, logical process. You ask a series of questions about your specific project needs. The answers then guide you down a path to the right approach. The takeaway isn't the chart itself, but the fact that a structured, deliberate process like this even exists. It's about making an informed choice.
And so that brings us to our final thought. Maybe the goal isn't to find some mythical, perfect, one-size-fits-all architecture. Maybe it's about making a deliberate, smart choice for where you are today while building in a way that lets you evolve for whatever comes tomorrow. Because in the end, the best architecture is simply the one that helps your product, your team, and your business succeed, wherever that journey takes you.